Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, and welcome to Prog Chattery 777. We are discussing Rush, and we've made it to their 6th studio album. This is, of course, Hemispheres. This was released in 1978, and similarly to its predecessor, A Farewell to Kings, this is another contender for one of the all-time best Rush albums. It is a great, great album, and Hemispheres really represents the true apex of their progressive rock era when they were experimenting with the extended songs and the epics and whatnot. This really is their ultimate statement as one of those progressive rock bands. And it completes the cycle of a really, really great run of albums. It starts out with Caressive Steel, which is it's not one of my favorite albums. It's a stepping stone album, but Caressive Steel is where they first put their heads to it and say we're going to be a progressive rock band. 2112, they fought the record company to become a progressive rock band, and they won. They found their sort of prog voice with A Farewell to Kings, and made an album that was at a certain level of quality, and they just take it to the next level with Hemispheres. And like I said, it is their ultimate statement. And when bands create that album, when they have that album and they make that ultimate statement, there's nothing else left for them to say. So there's really two paths they can go. A band is either gonna keep doing what they're doing until it gets uninspired and dull, or they're going to do something different. And Rush never got dull. They did something different after this because, this is such a wonderful example of, 70s prog and heavy 70s prog that, if they kept doing it, it would have run out of steam eventually. So, this is really what you want. If you want to hear Rush at the peak of their proggy days, this is definitely the album. Musically they are playing on their instruments at such an astounding level. It really did just get better and better and better and better. But their chops are on full display on this album. It's got some of the most complex music that Rush had ever done. There's an argument to be made with some of the more textured stuff that comes in the 80s. But as far as sheer playing, the Villa Strangiato. I mean, how can you beat that? That is such a phenomenal track. The album cover is perhaps controversial. It's got a nude male bum on it, which is a bit troublesome. But the floating brains are really cool. Of course, the hemispheres that the title is referring to is, of course, the hemispheres of the brain. So it's left side, right side. Mind versus heart. That whole dichotomy thing or whatever. So in that sense, it's a pretty cool album cover, and it's definitely a very proggy album cover. You wouldn't mistake it for any other genre, I wouldn't think. So yeah, it's successful in that regard. It's very easy to compare the structure of the album, the music now. The structure of the album is very similar to 2112 in that the first side opens up with the big side-long epic, big 20-minute thing, and the second side is a collection of unrelated songs. However, I think Hemispheres, on the whole, is a much better album than 2112, and that the second side really stands up to the first side. The first side does have an overwhelmingly good epic, but the second side has also got some overwhelmingly good moments too. So, again, the album works better as a whole package, which, that's what makes it a better album, at the end of the day. It's coherent and it's cohesive and it's focused. Again, like Farewell to Kings, it's consistently good from the moment the needle drops on the first side to the moment you bring it up from the second side. So, significant stuff. So let's dissect the tracks of the album. Of course, the album opens with the side-long epic, which is the continuation of the last song on A Farewell to Kings. So the albums are actually connected. The track on this I'm referring to is, of course, Cygnus X-1 Book II, Hemispheres. That's the full title of the song. The last one is Cygnus X-1 Book I, The Voyage. This is Cygnus X-1 Book II, Hemispheres. I always just think of the part that's on A Farewell to Kings, I just call Cygnus X-1, and I call this track Hemispheres. the tracks are connected, but you know, they're on different albums, so that's just how it is. But it's still a cool idea that they had to stretch an epic across 2 full albums, or across 2, well, partially across 2 albums. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. I got to talk about the song itself. As an epic, I think it is the best sidelong thing that Rush had ever done. I think it's better than 2112. I think that's controversial. I think a lot of fans again will point to 2112 and say that's their moment for epics. But I think Hemispheres is ultimately the better piece. You know, and don't get me wrong, I really love 2112 as a song. You know, I've always loved it. It's a definitive Rush moment. But there's a little more depth to Hemispheres, maybe. I think that might be what it is. You know, the themes and the riffs and the melodies that are used in 2112 are much more immediate and much more accessible, whereas, you know, the themes and riffs and, you know, melodic things that run through Hemispheres are, you know, they take a little bit more time to get into. You know, you gotta put a little bit more time into listening to it to really get it. But ultimately, I think Hemispheres has a much better arrangement, you know. The other epics that Rush had done, they feel very bitty, you know. They've got, you know, the songs were, you know, the subsections are all labeled there, and it's very obvious when it goes from one section to another. But that's not the case on Hemispheres. You know, the title track on this album feels much more like one whole piece. And there are lots of parts to it. You know, it does go through lots of different changes and whatnot, but you know, it doesn't feel bitty. It doesn't feel like little song sections, which is great. You know, that's why I consider it to be the peak of their epic writing. And the themes are really, really strong. You know, there's all kinds of phenomenal playing on it, and there's lots of cool instrumental sections. And you know, what can I say? It's a great piece. I really like you know, kind of towards, you know, the middle end. You know, the second half of it when it goes very, very mellow. And there's some important lyrical things that actually tie Cygnus X-1 to Hemispheres. So yeah, I really like that section, and it all winds its way up. It goes back into the heavy rocking thing, and finally concludes with a little acoustic piece. The last couple of verses are sung with just an acoustic guitar and Getty, which is well, finishing a big thing with an acoustic thing is very Yes, I guess. But it is really cool. And as I said, the lyrics are a connection, are related to the lyrics of Cygnus X-1 on Farewell to Kings, and again, very much in that fantasy realm. It's to do with the gods of wisdom. What is it? The god Apollo and Dionysus, the bringer of wisdom and the bringer of wisdom and the bringer of love. So that's the dichotomy between, you know, heart and mind, and you know, the different hemispheres of the brain and whatnot. So I guess that's kind of the basic conflict, and the whole premise of the song is that there's a war between, you know, those two fundamental sides or whatever. And halfway through the song, the hero from the previous Cygnus X-1, who was ripped apart by a black hole, is welcomed into Olympus as one of the gods, and man then represents the balance between mind and heart, I guess. I think that's how it's all supposed to fit together. I think the moral of the story is that you know, human beings must find a balance between logic and creativity, or, you know, heart and mind, whatever you want to say, whatever that dichotomy is. It's a long-winded concept, and his lyric style would change quite significantly after this album, notably. But yeah, on the whole, it is a tremendous piece. I think it is Rush's greatest long-form epic, and it is the last sidelong thing they ever did. The songs would consistently get shorter after this album. Like I said, this is the apex. This is the statement. Nothing more to say on the topic. So they switched gears shortly afterwards. Anyway, we switch sides. We flip the side. Of course, we flip the side, and we get track 1 of side 2, Circumstances. Now, this to me is the forgotten Rush classic. It's again, it's a short, punchy song, very much overshadowed by some of the other stuff on the album, but it is really, really good. You know, you look at it and you think, oh, 342, that must be, you know, the pop song or the, you know, the commercial song of the album, and it really isn't. You know, it's a very heavy, thrashy, kind of frantic number. It's really cool though. I love those guitar licks. You know, it's a weird chorus. It's a very heavily syncopated chorus, and the rhythm is just so awkward, and the way that, you know, Pierre manages to bounce around it, it's just fantastic. And but it still rocks. You know, it's got all these weird timings and all these awkward accents and whatnot, but it is a heavy, thrashy, you know, rock song. And yeah, it's great. It's also got a great little bridge where it completely switches gears, and we get totally different sound, and we get you know, one of those kind of classically inspired synth lines that pops up, which is really cool, and it's a welcome thing on the album. Makes it a really tight proggy track, kind of like you know, maybe like some of the shorter, rockier numbers that ELP did, but of course with much more guitar because Alex Lifeson rocks. Anyway. Moving on to track 3 of the album, track 2 of side 2, The Trees. Definitely a fan favorite. This is a really famous song. It's never been one of my all-time favorite Rush songs, to be honest, but it is really good. We get that really nice classical guitar at the beginning, the acoustic guitar, courtesy of Mr. Lifeson. And you know, it goes into a great rocking sort of number. I like. There's some great changes. I love the little break section in the middle. There's trouble with the trees. I love when it goes into that kind of swingy section. You know, there's a real sort of you know, emotive kicker to that. The way that the rhythm switches gears like that. But yeah, you know, it's a high energy rock song, and very unique lyrics. I can't think of any other song that's got lyrics quite like The Trees. It describes the political unrest between the willows and the maples. Is it willows? Let me just. Oh no, the oaks and the maples. Forgive me. My apologies. If I didn't correct myself, I'm sure one of you would have corrected me. But yeah, you know, Trees is a pretty good song. You know, controversially, I'd say The Trees is probably my least favorite on the album. That might be you know, the worst thing to say ever as a Rush fan. But I'll be honest, Trees is not my favorite on the album for sure. It's I like Circumstances more. Circumstances is more punchy, gives me more of a kick. But ultimately, both Circumstances and The Trees, they both get blown away with by the final track on the album, Villa Strangiato. And this is, again, one of Rush's all-time finest moments. You know, they finished the last album with Cygnus X-1, which is a really strong moment, and they finished this album off with another utterly fantastic piece. This is Rush's first instrumental, which is kind of a funny thing, because, you know, so much of what makes Rush great is their chops and their playing and all the tricky arrangements that they throw into their songs. You'd think that they'd do more instrumentals, but no, it took them 6 albums before they mustered the confidence to do it. But it is far and away their greatest instrumental. They did quite a few after this, but nothing quite comes close to La Villa Strangiato. It's also far and away their longest instrumental. It's 9 minutes long, almost 10 minutes of just some of the best playing you've ever heard. It always catches me off guard when I hear it. You know, I've heard it so many times. You know, when I was a kid, it was one of those great inspirations as a young drummer. You know, trying to figure out how the hell do you play La Villa Strangiato, and getting all those different sections worked out in my head. You know, I know it so well, but it still always catches me off guard. And you know, if I go too long without hearing it, you know, I listen to it, it still just blows the top of my head off. It's so very good. It's a nice slow build too. You know, I like the very opening parts are very nice, with, again, just a little it almost sounds like noodling on the acoustic guitar, but you know, live he plays that exact part. And it goes into this gentle arpeggio that just steadily builds and builds and builds, and then it gets into that main theme, boom boom boom, And all of their chops are on absolute full display. I mean, this is Villa Strangiato is really their statement of yeah, we can play our instruments. Because like I said, it's some of the best playing you'll ever hear. It's some of the best playing on record. And I like a lot of fusion stuff, which, let's be honest, fusion music is got some of the most like ludicrously talented people. In terms of technical ability, they've still got lots of feel, but fusion is one of those great genres, and it's predominantly instrumental. I don't think La Villa Strangiato is fusion at all. I think they may have been that may be what they were going for. They may have been listening to Brand X or Weather Report or something like that. But it's definitely more rock than it is fusion. They try to put a jazz kind of element to it, but it's really not jazzy. If anything, it's funky and it's loud and it's aggressive and it's rock. It's intricate, tightly arranged, awesome rock music. I love towards the end. There's a couple little sections that are taken from another song by somebody whose name escapes me. Powerhouse, but doom 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 diddle doom 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 diddle doom doom. They incorporate that little theme into it, and that's just great. It becomes one of the main little sections towards the end of the song, and that's just fantastic. There's so many moments, and some parts are just overwhelmingly complex. Like the time signatures are all over the place, and the way that they're passing parts between all three instruments and the fills that Neil's doing, it's just outrageous. And you get this really, really complex section, it's reminiscent of Zappa stuff, it is, nothing is quite to Zappa level. I'm a Zappa snob, but it's damn close. We have this big complex section, and then when it goes back into that bam 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 doom 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 doom, that's just so great. And the fact that they even use that riff, it makes it more accessible, even though it's even subtitled "An Exercise in Self-Indulgence." It still shows that it's fun, and they're still not taking themselves too seriously. It doesn't seem pretentious to me that they're out there, playing the living hell out of their instruments. But it's fun with it makes it accessible and cool for the listener. This has got a wonderful abrupt ending too. That's fantastic. Doesn't even end on a root note. That's anarchy, musical anarchy. Wonderful. And again, think of the Dream Theater influence. I mean, the Dream Theater must have loved La Villa Strangiato. I'm sure they play. I'd love to see Dream Theater play it. I'd rather see Rush play it. I think I saw Rush 4 times. They may well have played La Villa Strangiato when I saw them at least once, because it is one of the songs that they have fairly frequently brought back, and rightly so. Like I said, it is their best instrumental. It is utterly wonderful. Notably, Peart actually gets a music credit for once on La Villa Strangiato, which is only fair. But again, it's one of those strange things. Is Peart puts so much effort into arranging the drum parts, and the drums are so integral to the music of Rush. I don't know why he hasn't always gotten credit for the writing, but whatever. He's obviously fine with it. But yeah, La Villa Strangiato wraps the album up on a mind-blowing note, and that wraps up a fantastic late 70s prog album by Rush. Like I said, they changed after this album. They never quite went to this extreme ever again. As such, it means it's essential listening, because it is that ultimate statement. You really need to get Hemispheres in your life if it isn't in your life already. So as I said, essential album. Pick it up if you can. Thank you so much for watching my near incoherent ramblings about the great band Rush. If you enjoyed them, don't forget to like and subscribe and all that fun stuff. Leave a comment if you wish. And yes, you will see me in the future. The next album is a big one, Permanent Waves. Thanks again, everybody. You'll see me in the future. Bye-bye.